Hey everyone, welcome back to Success by Design, the podcast where we talk about what it actually looks like to build a profitable, sustainable interior design business without burning yourself to the ground. And I'm your host, Katie Decker Erickson. I'm going to tell you today's episode is a little bit more behind the scenes than usual. This one, I'm not going to lie, I almost didn't record it because it's vulnerable, it's honest, and it pulls the curtain back on some of the hardest moments I've had of leadership. And if you're listening to this and you're a designer who's wearing too many hats, you're avoiding a decision you know you need to make, or you're second guessing yourself at every turn, I have a gift for you, and that is this episode. Before we get into it, let's start how we always do, 2 truths and a lie. Let's go. Number 1, not making a decision is a decision, and it's usually the most expensive one. Number 2, the longer you wait to make a hard decision, the more emotional and complicated it becomes. Number 3, great CEOs always feel confident and calm when making big decisions. Sit with that for a bit. We're going to come back to it at the end. Here's the reality. Business takes guts. And this is the truth that no one told me when I started my design firm, and likely no one told you. It just takes guts. Not talent, not taste, not even vision. It's just raw guts. Because there's going to come this moment, and actually there's going to be a bunch of them, where no one can decide for you. There's not going to be a Pinterest board. There's not going to be a mentor shortcut. There's not going to be a spreadsheet. Although I will tell you that I have an emergency line for my coaching clients because I wish I had had a coach when I was in my 6 figures growing into 7-figure business range who I could have reached out to on short notice. So I do offer that. But typically it's just you. It's going to be your values. And that decision is going to feel very heavy. Like I said, maybe you're sitting with it today. Here's what happens though, when you don't make a decision that I see happen over and over again. The project is going to stall. Your team morale is going to drop, including your own. The cash flow is going to get weird, and you start losing credibility as a leader. You're also probably going to stay stuck in this low-grade anxiety loop where everything feels unresolved. And while it may feel like indecision keeps you safe, it can also keep you really small. In fact, I had a designer on my team who kept missing deadline after deadline after deadline. And I hung in there and I hung in there and I kept thinking she's a really great designer. She just doesn't have good time management. I'm going to back up the deadline 2 days and see if she can produce it on time. And it just became this mind game. And I will tell you, it started feeling more and more anxious, more and more unresolved, and more frustrating. It does keep me small. It did keep me small. And consequently, it also started to affect the rest of the team because then they got in the habit of seeing on our project management boards that, well, if that designer can be 2 days late, then why am I sweating bullets about this? It was not easy to reduce the work hours of that designer. But I was costing my business, not just tangibly, but intangibly, in what became the expectation of our culture, which was not sustainable and certainly not scalable. In fact, I remember back in the early days, this is early stage Katie, I'm going to take you back. I was deeply invested in being liked, and I wanted to be fair, and I wanted to be kind, and I wanted to make the right choice. Okay, what did that actually look like? I ended up over-explaining, over-delaying, over-processing, and asking everyone for input. It was like a democracy and still not deciding. Because here's the reality. I confused being thoughtful with being hesitant. And that cost me time and money and honestly, peace. Let's talk about another one of the hardest decisions any business owner makes, and that's letting someone go. And before we introduced a process for onboarding, which we now have a very intense process for onboarding before you even interview with me. But before we implemented that, which was also born out of all of these mistakes, we made a lot of them. And there was this season when I knew someone wasn't the right fit. The data was there. And the tension and the unease, and my intuition knew they weren't right for the team. And the impact on the rest of the team was there too. In fact, we had this with an administrative assistant. And we kept trying. And I kept thinking, well, maybe if we say it this way, or we word it this way, or gosh, if we try this, it's going to change it. And I just kept thinking, what if it's me? What if I'm wrong? What if they just need that more time, right? The reality is I wasn't asking, what is this costing the business? What is this teaching my team about leadership? And what is this costing me? Because I was paying in all of those areas. So when I finally made the decision, and I will tell you personally, I hate firing people. It is the worst thing in the entire world. I despise it. And I also hate telling people you're not getting the job done. It is the hardest thing for me to do. But the reality is it can be really clarifying, not only for me, but for the rest of the team. Because then when we took that person and offboarded them, the team exhaled, our culture shifted, the business stabilized again. And that's exactly what it should do. And I learned something really critical in that moment. While it was really, really hard to let her go, delaying hard decisions is not eliminating the pain. It's just redistributing it. Let me say that again for you one more time. Delaying those hard decisions doesn't eliminate pain. It just redistributes it. So as you become a CEO and you get out of being a business owner, I don't want you to be a business owner. You have to be a CEO. You're going to understand something really important. Time is money. And this clicked for me. My job as a CEO is not to avoid discomfort. It's to create momentum. And I cannot get a result until I make a decision. Now, let's be perfectly honest. Not every decision I'm going to make is going to be perfect. In fact, sometimes I don't even remember the decision I made, and I have to ask someone, right? I have to go back to the project management software and say, why did we do that way? But here's the thing. Every decision should create data, especially if you're logging it in your project management software. In fact, I often see two different types of CEOs in my coaching practice. One I call the frozen CEO. Yes, straight out like Elsa. But the frozen CEO overthinks, they avoid, they wait for certainty, and they keep everyone in limbo, and everyone is going nuts waiting for a decision. The other one is the reckless CEO. And I really should call these business owners because CEOs figured this out. Business owners are still struggling. So we'll call it the reckless business owner. And their approach is ready, fire, aim. There's no counsel. They make emotional reactions, and then there's this massive collateral damage. Whether you're sitting on the sidelines with the paralysis of analysis, like the frozen business owner, or you're a ready, fire, aim business owner, neither one of these works. Because the goal is to be decisive and informed, but you have to march forward. Okay, so this is what I do when I make decisions. And this is how I'm making hard decisions right now in real time, whether it's about staffing, pricing, scope, or strategy. I'm going to start with the basic question that has become the mantra of my 40s. What do I not know? What do I not know? I get brutally honest about missing information, and I want everyone to tell me too. When I say, what am I missing? I really want to know. What am I missing? Not assumptions, not stories. I want actual facts. What am I missing here? In fact, I ask that a lot, even in the boards I sit on. What am I missing in this thought? And a lot of times I'll get feedback like, well, what about this or what about that I have not thought of? You'll be surprised what you learn. And then as part of that, go out and seek counsel. I want to talk to people who are ahead of me, who have no emotional stakes in the game and are going to tell me the truth about things. Not a group text. I don't want an Instagram poll. And I roll my eyes because I get so tired of that. I want real counsel. This is called phone a friend. Back in the old days, right? Phone a friend. And then I want you to ask better questions. Instead of saying, will this be uncomfortable? And I'm going to tell you right now it is. In fact, I'm going to walk you through a scenario of this in just a second where I tried this, and it's uncomfortable. But I want you to ask, what does this protect? What does this unlock? And what happens if I don't decide? Now you're in a position to actually make that decision. It's going to be clear, it's going to be direct, it's going to be kind, and it's going to be firm. And after you make it, you're going to move on. There's going to be no spiraling, no relitigating, no dragging it into the future. This is the ready, aim, fire approach. Not the paralysis of analysis business owner, not the ready, fire, aim business owner, right? This can be really, really hard. And I want to give you an example of one that was really, really tough. We had someone on the team who had been a great performer and was doing fabulously. And then all of a sudden, just something switched. So it came with the conversation of, what do I not know? What has happened in this person's life? They were performing, now we're not performing. What went wrong? And I will tell you, it was great. This person actually told me about, I reached out and said, hey, I feel like something's off. What am I missing? Are you okay? And they actually told me about a diagnosis that they had. They'd had it for a long time, but it was causing an issue. Okay, well, now we have something to go forward with. Seek counsel. So I immediately picked up the phone, called our CPA. Here's the situation. What do you think we ought to do? They need a reduction in hours probably. What can we afford? What is this looking like? Then I called the person back and said, hey, you have this diagnosis. This is tough. How many hours a week do you actually want to work? Let's have the conversation. And then also, as part of that conversation, what would make your job better during those hours? Because I'm in the business of performance, right? So if someone isn't feeling good about what they're doing, or they don't have the tools or resources they need, then guess what? They're not going to perform. So it's a two-part question. How many hours do you want to work? And what do you need to do, or what can I do to help you be successful during those hours? Then we made the decision. In fact, I even went to them and said, if I took 10 hours out of your job description and transported that over to someone else to do the things you don't enjoy doing, because they were honest with me and said, this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to do, would you be okay with that? Because I don't want to offend you. And that's literally the words I used. And their exact words were, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, now we both have a path forward. We have the same expectation of how many hours a week will be worked, what those hours worked will look like, and that there's going to be someone else coming on the team who will handle those remaining items. What a great feeling. Yeah. So now we can move on. Like I said, no spiraling, no relitigating, no dragging it into the future. We have a trajectory and a path forward. That is a win. And those are hard conversations to pick up the phone and have. In fact, let me pause for a second. And here's the question I want you to answer honestly. You're driving along in your car, say it out loud, DM me your answer. I read and respond to every single one. What decision have you been avoiding because you're afraid of getting it wrong, or that it's going to feel uncomfortable? Sometimes nailing the decision is the final act of leadership. This is why I want to hear from you. All right, I know you've heard me say it 100 times. Everything is data. You gotta know your numbers. But I will tell you, there's a very big emotional component to data, because one of the most freeing mindset shifts I've had is this: nothing is the end all be all. Y'all, I am proud to report that we are not open heart surgeons. We are not brain surgeons. We are not orthopedic surgeons. We get to do something that doesn't save lives. It impacts them. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not belittling our industry, but not what we do is not the end all be all. Everything is data. The reality is you're not failing, you're learning, and you're not stuck. You're going to gather information, and you're not behind because you're in the process. When you start viewing decisions as data instead of verdicts, guess what? You're going to start, I'm snapping my fingers. You're going to start moving faster. And speed, now with wisdom, you don't want to be the ready, fire, aim CEO, but speed with wisdom, that is a superpower. Let's talk about designers for a minute. You know how we all are. We're intuitive by nature. We see nuance. We feel very deeply. And that's a huge gift. But here's the other flip side of that gift, because every gift has a flip side. If left unchecked, it can actually slow our leadership. So your business doesn't have to be perfect. It needs you to be clear. Because those clear decisions you make are going to create a stronger team for you. They're going to result in better boundaries. And wait for it, higher profitability. Who doesn't want that? And most importantly, more trust from your clients and those on your team. Isn't that what we all want at the end of the day? Isn't that why you started your business in the first place? Let's get you back to that. All right, remember when we did 2 truths and a lie at the beginning of this episode? We're going to dive into it. The lie was what? Let me read them off to you one more time. 1, 2, and 3. Here we go. 1, not making a decision is a decision, and it's usually the most expensive one. Number 2, the longer you wait to make a hard decision, the more emotional and complicated it becomes. Or number 3, great CEOs always feel confident and calm when making big decisions. Now that you've had a moment to sit with it, yeah, I hope you know great CEOs do not always feel confident and calm when making big decisions. I sometimes today still struggle with making big decisions. Just because you have big numbers in your business doesn't mean you are good or you feel comfortable at making big decisions. I still feel I don't move as fast as I should sometimes. And sometimes I really get caught in the, oh no, they're going to be upset with me mindset. And I have to switch out of that myself. The reality is that it can feel uncomfortable. You might not feel confident and you might not feel calm, but you will feel clear, maybe not fearless, and you act anyway. Remember when I asked you what the hard decision is that you're waiting on right now? If you're sitting in that space, I'm not going to lie. You don't need motivation. You need clarity. And this is exactly what I help designers with. This is why I offer a free 15-minute problem-solving session. I'm not going to try to sell you something. We're going to talk about naming the decision, cutting through the noise, and identifying your next best move. No pressure, no pitching, just leadership clarity. Before you ever hire a coach, you should be able to sit with them and see how they go about tackling one of the problems you're currently facing. If this resonates with you, I would love for you to book a call with me. Head over to fixmydesignbiz.com. Again, that's fixmydesignbiz.com. We're going to tackle it together. And until next time, I want you to remember, make the decision, but gather the data first, seek the counsel, and then get busy building the business that works for you, not you working for it. Until then, take care.